And cut that hair, Zachary! Our mother had been heard from all the way in the kitchen to where we stood in our bedroom. Of course, all Zach did was comb his hair, making no sign that he had heard our mother at all. I was scrambling to get my jeans on, a fitted clean pair of Levi's, the most formal legwear I owned. Like whenever he was in my presence, I stared at my brother as he groomed himself to what seemed to be social perfection. Listen up, Puckerface. Stay behind me during the walkthrough. If the realtor sees your mug, we might not get the deal and the house, alright? I nodded, and even his insult to my fairly normal 10-year-old face didn't make my grin falter. I asked, for probably the 12th time, if I was going to get my own bedroom. Me and Zach shared a bedroom even with a decent age gap between us. I was 10 and he 17, a product of my mom's first marriage. We lived in a single-wide trailer house on the edge of a weedy suburb. The tiny living space was claustrophobic for everyone involved, but me and Zach suffered the most. There was that time Mom brought up the possibility of me holing up in the small laundry room, and I jumped with joy, all too ready to try it. But Mom eventually shut the idea down, citing that I would have to lay my small mattress across the washer and dryer, which was uneven in height, thus it would surely hurt my back. I thought it was sweet of her to think of my health foremost, but when skipping rocks down by Stage Rock Reservoir, Zach told me it wasn't because she didn't want me to hurt myself, so much as it was she didn't want to have to lift my rotting mattress every time she did laundry. I didn't know what to believe, but nonetheless I continued being a parasite to my brother's privacy. "You'll get your own room, Spud," Zach said, still slicking back his hair. He continued, saying most houses were not like the tin can rat trap we lived in. Real houses had more than one extra bedroom, as most families had more than one kid. With my new bedroom assured, I quickly ran down the hallway after Zach, meeting with Mom in the kitchen. She made no mention of how Zach didn't even clip his split ends, as she put down food in front of him, bacon and eggs. All she said was, "You're going to give him a bad impression," she said, almost sing-songy, clearly holding back her frustration. "If he doesn't like the look of me, don't talk with your mouth full." Then I say forget it, Ma. "What's that thing you always say about books and covers, eh?" Mom kissed him atop the head for that, smiling as she had no response. He was right, and she knew it. Once done with breakfast, we all hurried into the car and sped across town. I was so excited, giddy really, because not only were we going to maybe nab ourselves a new home, but also Mom had taken us out of school to do so. It was a Wednesday, and I wasn't at school. As a kid, this was damn near a vacation. The house was almost on the complete other side of town, and Mom had discussed it all with us boys. Despite how much trouble we caused her, she always kept us in the loop and very much valued our input. Anyway, she told us we would probably need to attend a different school, questioning if that was okay with us. We both said it wasn't a problem, and this was the truth, on account that I had no friends, and Zach made new ones wherever he went. After an hour's drive, we finally arrived at the open house. It was 2 stories with an attic, 3 bedrooms and 2 bathrooms, a laundry room, and a mudroom. Yellow siding looked white with the passage of time, and the roof was a gritty gray. It looked like a mansion to me, but only because of the contrast to our current home. Me and Zach wandered around while Mom talked to the realtor. He was old, thus he creeped me out. Something about the crinkled skin and bony fingers of the elderly gave me the willies. Of course, when I lamented this to Zach, he made a joke about the realtor hiding under my new bed. I shut my eyes, pretending I didn't hear him. When we met back up with Mom, she asked us what we thought. We simply responded by rushing up to her and embracing her. It was her loose change, tips from the diner, and cutting corners on other luxuries that allowed us enough money for the down payment. She squealed and hugged us back. It was official. We had a new house. Getting settled took about a week. Even though the house had a plethora of nooks and crannies to explore, all I needed was my room. That was all I focused on for several days. Zach and Mom teased me about my absence from the rest of the house. I didn't hear them. I was too happy. My room had 3 major shelves, 1 large window, a bed, and a small closet. As I discovered, there were pluses and minuses to my new bedroom. The pluses were my own set of shelves and my new bed, which was far bigger than the top bed of the bunk beds me and Zach shared. Plus, I didn't fear falling out of my bed now that it was an acceptable height. The shelves I quickly decorated with my belongings, which had previously been crammed into my toy chest. There were 3 major shelves, and I put plushies on the bottom, miscellaneous toys and mementos on the middle, and on the top, for all to see, was my Spider-Man Heroes and Villains complete collection. They were my pride, even as small plastic figures. Now I had room to put more in my toy chest, an exhilarating notion. What was I to fill it with? More toys? I did want to get into drawing. Maybe I'd fill it with drawing notebooks. Who really knew? The 2 major drawbacks to my room was the absence of Zach at night and the closet. I never realized how much I relied on Zach's presence to put me to sleep. Perhaps unconsciously, I fell asleep to the sound of him breathing, and without him, my room at night felt uncomfortably silent. The other problem was my closet. I never liked closets as a concept. Sure, they were justified as storage space, but be real. They were doors that led to nowhere. Before fitting it with clothes, I always opened my closet to a blank wall, which disturbed me for an unknown reason. Sleeping with it in my room was even worse. I swear I heard strange sounds coming from it at night. Mom and Zach assured me that it was just my imagination. With neither Mom or Zach believing me about the closet, all I could do was deal with the strange sounds. My mom arrived one Saturday, back from town with a surprise for me. That was how she put it anyway. She held a pack of mouse traps up to me, and I stood, confused. "For your closet," she said. I suddenly understood. A smile grazed my face. She hadn't believed that anything sinister lurked in my closet, but she did believe that I was truly hearing something. I thanked her for believing me. "Of course, honey." I set the traps. Traps were a must-have when living in the trailer house, so I know how to use them by myself. Up that same day. There were 4 traps, so I lined the closet end to end. Anything in there was sure to get snapped. Any small rodents. A part of my childish mind didn't believe it was mere rodents. I guess we'll see, I thought to myself. That night I tossed and turned in my bed. The only thing I never liked about Saturdays was I never did much that day. I mostly played Doom on the desktop, our only computer. And because of this, I didn't expel enough energy to fall asleep at night. On weekdays, I particularly passed out once I hit the pillows. So there I laid, wishing Zach was there to lull me to sleep. That's when I heard it again. A small noise coming from the closet. I waited very patiently to hear the snaps, death traps shooting off. But the sound continued, actually louder than the times before. So much so, I sat up in bed, staring off towards the closet. It sounded thumpy, like someone was in there rearranging themselves to fit better. I gasped when the door swung open, so fast and violently the doorknobs hit the sides of the wall. I ducked for cover under the blankets. I shivered there for a while, then peeked out from under the covers. The inside of the closet was completely black, not even the slightest shadow of the contents within. As I continued watching, something emerged from the darkness. A tall, pale shape. It eased downwards towards me, and what I thought was its head opened up, 5 crippling fingers outstretched for me. I didn't breathe. I didn't dare move. The fingers curled, rearranging its form. Now only 2 fingers were elongated. The giant arm then made a gesture so human I almost dropped my guard. It beckoned me to join it. With its 2 fingers, it tried to wave me into the closet. That's when I finally threw the covers over my head, tried to convince myself I was dreaming, and forced myself to find some sleep. The thing never made a sound. I did eventually fall asleep, and when I woke up, I had forgotten entirely about the beckoning hand. Until I sat up and saw both the closet doors were open, sunlight beaming into my hanging clothes. "Eat it, Ben! Eat it!" I struggled under the weight of Manic, a chubby 10-year-old, as he tried to feed me worms. I kept my mouth clamped shut, trying not to stare up at the dangling slimy invertebrates above me. Big Manic Graham had set his eyes on me like a hawk to a rabbit. His bullying was disguised as friendship first, being the first kid to approach me and to introduce himself. I, quite foolishly, thought I was actually going to make a friend this school year. Turns out, Manny had just ran out of victims in this school. Everyone else was thoroughly done with him. Apparently, despite being a total shit-slinger, his feelings got hurt easily, and everyone but me, the new kid, knew it. But this was my first day, before I knew Manny's weakness. So, I could do nothing as he sat on me, trying to feed me brown worms he had dug up on the school grounds. "Come on, Ben! Don't be a fatty fat wuss!" He always brought up body fat when insulting people, an obvious projection of his own struggles with weight. Just when I thought I could tough it out, he lowered the worms till they touched my face, and I finally screamed. Manny laughed, his weight jolting against me, squishing me. "You better knock it off, Manny!" Me and Manny both looked towards the female voice. A small girl, pink-striped sweater and jeans, stood looking at us. "Why?" Manny yelled. She smiled. "That's Zach Lennon's little brother. You know, Ben Lennon." Manny looked down at me, tossing the worms aside. "No, you're lying. He's way too young to be Zach's brother." He stared at me. "Right?" I just glared at him, panting. A part of him must have believed it, as he stood up, off me, and said something of an apology. I didn't accept. I just got up and ran to the side of the building. I sat alone and cried. Why did my brother always have to save me? He was so cool. His very name sent bullies fleeing. They respected him. Teachers honored him. Girls adored him and boys idolized him. Like I said, throughout his life he molded himself to social perfection. He dressed, talked, and walked like a rebel, but didn't waste a moment showing his tenderness and understanding. Yes, a lot of it was performative, but it worked with keeping himself in good light, with both kids and adults. He was a silent objector, a tender warrior, and a gracious destroyer. I realized sitting there, my knees to my chest, I resented him about as much as I worshipped him. I was his exact opposite, weak, small, and cowardly. What made me really mad was a lot of it wasn't my fault. How could I stand up for myself when someone was always saving me? It was frustrating. I looked up, unburying my face from my damp arm. But there was one scenario where I was on my own. "Where are you going, Ben?" I smiled at my mother with grim anticipation. "I'm headed to bed. Tired. I'll see you in the morning." Both Mom and Zach seemed confused on account that I had never bailed out midway through a movie on a Saturday night. Movie nights on Saturdays were the only nights I was allowed up past my bedtime, since movies were so long nowadays. But I didn't care. I had a demon in my closet waiting for me. Ever since last Saturday, when it first appeared to me, it had popped out of my closet to try and get me to join it in the darkness. Always just a hand, always a soundless beckoning. So, I was sure tonight would be no different. And I was right as rain. I sat on my bed, flashlight in hand. I was cold, despite the night being quite warm, in the upper 60s. Goosebumps riddled the flesh of my arms while I stared at my closet. The moon was out, shining pale light throughout my room, small dark shadows keeping to the corners. After several minutes, small sounds cluttered around in my closet. I tensed, and the closet opened, fast again. I saw a darkness looking into my closet. I turned on my flashlight and shined the yellow beam into the darkness between the open doors. I was surprised to see nothing when illuminating the closet. It was like shining a light into a dark, deep pool, as if some shiny pane of reflective liquid sat as a barrier between my world and the crooked hands. Suddenly, the liquid parted, and the pale hand emerged. I grasped, but kept my cool, keeping my light on the intruder. Be like Zack. Be chill, I thought. Like usual, it leaned down and curled its fingers at me. I'm not afraid of you, I said. The hand continued to beckon me, my bravery having no effect. I grimaced and made my way off my bed. I crept closer to the hand. It was so big, it could grab me up if it wanted. But it didn't. In fact, it retracted as I drew closer. It still continued drawing me in, till it disappeared into the black void. I now stood before the semi-translucent barrier. My heart was beating out of my chest, my breathing tight. I put a hand against the black, and then pushed through it. I felt a wave of emotion flow over me, and I smiled. It was good, a feeling equivalent of spending Christmas Day with family, riding a bicycle in summer, or eating ice cream with your brother. I liked it, and I wanted to feel it all throughout my body, not just through my hand. So I walked fully inside. In the morning, Mom and Zack found an empty bed, my closet doors wide open. I was never seen again. Whenever he was in my presence, I stared at my brother as he groomed himself, to what I seemed to be social perfection. Kovak. Want to read that again? Okay. Again. Of course, when I lamented this to Jack, fuck me, everyone else was thoroughly done with him. Apparently, despite being a total shit slinger, his